Well, thank you, everyone. It is really my pleasure this afternoon to introduce our next speaker. Senator Kevin De León has really provided an incredible amount of leadership in this state. Governor Brown and others were talking about it this morning, and we're only going to hear a snippet of it right now, but it's been truly impressive. He is the President Pro Tem of the California Senate and is the first Latino elected to that position in over 130 years. And as for those of you who've been following it, you know he's been making the most of it. Senator De León is focused on building a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable economy for California. He's working to make college more accessible and affordable, improve retirement security for low-income workers through the first-of-its-kind retirement savings program, and support California's growing diverse communities. That's the theme you hear time and time again from his work, the need to be all-inclusive, all-understanding, and for building on a prosperous future for California. He's got an extensive record on women's rights, gun violence prevention, and workers' rights. He's led the first fight in the legislature to combat homelessness and provide opportunities and protections for immigrant residents. Among his many accomplishments is his ongoing commitment to combat climate change while building the clean energy economy and ensuring that no Californians are left behind. We know what that challenge is. We need to build a prosperous future. We've got to address climate change, but it's got to be making sure that it's fair and equitable for all. And Senator De León has definitely been leading that charge. His legislation has created the most ambitious renewable energy goals in the nation and has required that a quarter of all cap-and-trade revenue be spent in disadvantaged communities. It is my honor to introduce the President Pro Tem of the California Senate, Kevin De León.
Thank you so very much. Good afternoon to each and every one of you. I want to thank you very much for inviting me to join all of you. And to Craig, thank you very much for that very warm introduction of my person. It is indeed an honor to be here with so many incredible leaders and innovators at the forefront of the clean energy economy. And there will no doubt be many challenges ahead for your industries and for our state and federal and even international climate policy. But I do take comfort, and I want to underscore and emphasize the following once again. I do take comfort, very much comfort, in the California example. And I think it is instructive for the rest of the nation as well as the world. Under both Democratic and Republican administrations, going back to Ronald Reagan's time as governor of California, California has consistently pushed for cleaner air, cleaner water, as well as energy, more efficient buildings and vehicles, and stronger protections for our cherished natural landscapes and resources. Now, these efforts were driven by necessity, not ideology. Californians were literally sick of breathing clean air, or I should say breathing dirty air and drinking dirty water. And the consequences were, in fact, holding back our economy. But by following the science and taking common sense steps to protect consumers, wildlife, and our air and our water, we've actually turned some of our biggest environmental challenges into economic opportunities. We've implemented some of the most ambitious clean air policies in the nation, including tailpipe emission standards that have become the national model. We led the changes to remove lead from gasoline. We asked for and received nearly 150 waivers under the California Clean Air Act to pursue even stronger policies to tackle pollution. And just in the last 2 years, as Craig just mentioned a few moments ago, we passed the most ambitious clean energy and emissions reductions targets in the nation with Senate Bill 350 and Senate Bill 32. These efforts have helped save American households billions of dollars in avoided fuel and energy costs. They've helped reduce the pollution that is so harmful to our children, to our families, and to our planet. And they've turned clean energy into a pillar of our economy that now employs upwards up to 500,000 new jobs in California. I want to put this in context for each and every one of you because we're coming off the worst economic recession since 1929. Well, we made some very draconian cuts to our California state budget. In fact, I remember when we cut upwards up to $48 billion in our general fund budget. Not 48 million or 480 million, $48 billion. Coming off the worst economic recession, we sent the right policies that sent the clear market signals that attracted the necessary capital to create the technologies necessary to help us meet our ambitious CO2, carbon, and other criteria pollutant goals for a state like California. So we have, in fact, delinked and decoupled carbon from GDP, meaning, understandably so, that back in the day, if you wanted to grow an economy and you wanted to put people to work, if you aspired to be part of the middle class, you had to burn fossil fuels. That's the American way. In fact, that's the way we did it. That's why we're the world's largest economy, because largely we burned fossil fuels. If you want to be part of the middle class, you have to burn fossil fuels. You have to work in a factory, an assembly line. But in fact, we know now, with data, empirical evidence, with scientists from all over the world, not just California and the United States, but from all over the world, that's not sustainable. And we have, in fact, delinked and decoupled carbon from GDP, meaning we are 28% less carbon intensive as a state in the aggregate, and today we're the 6th largest economy in the world. There's only 5 other economies larger than that of the state of California. The United States in the aggregate, China, Japan, Germany on a good day, depending on the fluctuations of the sterling, the United Kingdom, and then at number 6, it's a great state of California. For those who are Californians, your state of California. If you're remotely interested in knowing what the top 10 is, at number 7, it is France. Number 8, largely nuclear. Number 8, it is Brazil. And number 9 is a country that's been in the headlines for quite a bit, and it probably will be for the foreseeable future. It is Russia. And number 10, it is Italy. So California's economy is larger than that of Vladimir Putin's Russia, to put this in context. Largely driven as of late by our policies that have driven the market towards the technologies necessary to meet our ambitious carbon goals in California. That's why I say we have turned this into a pillar of our economy. It's not boutique-ish. It's not exotic. It's not unique. It is a mainstay for our economy in California if we're going to continue to thrive and put people to work and grow an economy. Now, for those who are laissez-faire capitalists, we're not holding the free market back. In fact, we are pushing the market forward. We're disrupting the status quo, catalyzing investment, innovation, and competition, and charting a much more sustainable economic path. We're the leading manufacturer in the nation, and the single largest manufacturer in this state is Tesla Motors. Tesla Motors is the largest manufacturer in the state of California. The progress of clean car technology in less than 2 decades is a perfect example. In 2000, there were only 2 types of hybrids, 2 models. 2 hybrid electric cars available in all of the United States. In fact, less than 10,000 were sold back in the year 2000. Your only choice, obviously, was gas or diesel. The vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of the rest of the world drives internal combustion cars because there's one exclusive transportation fuel supply. You have to buy it, whether you like it or not, if you're going to get to point A or to point B. If you're going to get to school, drop your kids off at school, get to work, get to the hospital or clinic, do your shopping, you have to drive an internal combustion car because it's the exclusive transportation fuel supply. That has changed quite dramatically. Again, only 2 types of hybrid electric cars back in the year 2000. Now, in 2013, Americans bought nearly 500,000 hybrid vehicles alone, 2013. And today, there are dozens of options available in every shape and size, from the Toyota Prius to the Tesla Model No. 3 to a hybrid Chevy Tahoe. From hydrogen fuel cells like the Toyota Mirai to full electric sports cars to buses as well as heavy trucks. The industry is thriving, in no small part to California's innovative policies. Our commitment to strong environmental protections is a leading reason why California remains the nation's capital of innovation. We didn't grow into the world's 6th largest economy and the epicenter of innovation by embracing alternative facts or conspiracy theories or pseudo-scientific nonsense. That's not what we do in a great state like California. In this state, we make our public policy based on facts and science. That helps inform our decision-making once we make our decisions in the state capital. Californians understand that we don't have to choose between a strong economy and a healthy environment. They are compatible with each other. They work with each other. They're linked to each other. Again, we have shattered that old myth that to grow an economy and to put people to work, you have to burn fossil fuels. There is no other choice. That to give people upward mobility, you have to emit smog or toxin pollutants, criteria pollutants, as well as GHG, carbon, CO2. That is a false equation. It's a false choice. And that's something that we're not willing to accept in California. To be clear, also too, we are far from perfect in a great state like California. We in fact have a long way to go to ensure that every Californian can breathe clean air and drink clean water and enjoy the beautiful outdoors for generations to come. In fact, just recently, and I think just a few days ago, it was reported that our state, the state of California, is actually home to 6 of the top 10 most polluted cities, areas in the nation, according to the American Lung Association. In fact, each year in Southern California alone, 3,000 people die early, prematurely, due to air pollution. Asthma is the #1 reason for public school absenteeism in California. Asthma. When a young child, a young girl is in an emergency room and her mother has to take her there and they have no health insurance, she loses a whole full day of work. A full day of work to pay for the rent, to put the roof over their child's head, to put the food on the table, as well as the clothes on her back. So this has real economic impacts, negative impacts, public health outcome impacts on our economy, and obviously on the lungs of our children. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach combined are the largest ports in the United States of America. In fact, 40% of all movement goods from the Pacific Rim come through the port of Los Angeles. So whether you live in Paducah, Kentucky, or Bloomington, Indiana, for example, chances are pretty high that that flat screen television set, the tableware, your underwear, your tube socks came through the port of Los Angeles or Long Beach. So a young girl's lungs help subsidize that price point that you purchase that product with in Kentucky, in Midwest America, or elsewhere. So there are consequences with regards to the air quality that impact the whole nation. Again, 3,000 people die prematurely just in California alone, in Southern California, due to air pollution. And many California communities continue to struggle just to secure clean drinking water. But we have made progress, and we have a roadmap to help transform the global energy system. So we can't not afford to rest on our laurels, and we certainly cannot afford to backslide, especially given Congress's and the President's efforts to roll back critical environmental protections. We're going to have to start playing defense in state legislatures as well as our federal courts throughout the country. That's why the California State Democrats introduced the Preserve California legislative package, which ensures that no matter what President Trump does or the Congress, we won't lose the protection of our landmark federal environmental laws, like the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts, the Safe Drinking Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. That these laws that are passed, these laws in fact were passed with bipartisan support, but we've taken that for granted for decades. But now we have a president and an EPA administrator from Oklahoma, Mr. Scott Pruitt, who deny the reality of climate science. So we plan to move quickly to enshrine these key federal protections into California state law, and we hope this package will provide a model for other states to follow. Our strategy is very simple and straightforward. And many reporters from New York Times to the BBC to the Guardian to Washington Post and other folks, Mother Jones, who I believe is here today, they've all asked me the same question. What is California's strategy? The strategy is very simple and straightforward. To protect our economic prosperity, our progressive values, and our people. Whether it comes to environmental protections, the clean air that we breathe into our lungs, when it comes to climate change and climate action, engaging still with other subnationals, our good friend here, Minister Glenn Murray from Canada, when it comes to our good friends, Undersecretary Lacey from Mexico and others, we will continue to engage with our subnational partners as well as other national governments from throughout the world. That was the #1 question that was asked in Marrakesh, Morocco at the Conference of Parties 22 obviously after the election of Donald Trump on November the 8th. We will continue. When it comes to, and I want to link this because I think it is linked with each other, when it comes to protecting families as well too, and making sure that we don't separate children from their mothers and mothers from their children. Because by doing so, you're not going to grow the economy and you're not going to bring those jobs back from automation. That's not who we are as a state and as a nation. We don't engage with the federal government to be an extension, a cog in the Trump deportation machine, splitting families apart. That's not who we are. So this is all linked together. You can't silo this out. When it comes to climate action, when it comes to electrification of our transportation system, when it comes to protecting working families, and those who are disproportionately impacted by carbon as well as other criteria pollutants. This is all linked together, my friends. This is not siloed out, segregated. So you gotta believe in the immigrant community as well as climate action, as well as the ability to breathe clean air irrespective of who you are and where you come from. It's all linked together, and that's the way we view it here in the state of California. We are also moving to protect our right under the California Clean Air Act to exceed federal tailpipe emission standards and other pollution requirements. Obviously, nothing in the law has changed to justify the EPA's withholding or waiver. The only thing that has changed is the balance of political power in Washington. If this administration refuses to grant California's waiver, it would be breaking with decades of established law and science. And we won't hesitate. Let me underscore and emphasize and highlight and bold and italicize, if you will, the following. We will not hesitate to take legal action. That's why I made the decision to hire outside counsel, the former top lawyer of the United States, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General of the United States, to be our outside legal counsel for the California State Legislature. But I do urge the President and the Congress to see the folly in such short-sighted decision-making. What's at stake, obviously, is the health of our planet, our economy, the lungs of our children. We've actually demonstrated, again, that you can delink and decarbon carbon from GDP. You can link, I should say, and decouple carbon from GDP. Now, if we were not successful and it was not measurable or quantifiable, then I can understand anyone from Washington, or for that matter, any other state capital, including our own state capital, and say, this is a folly altogether. What you're saying is theoretical. It's material for a white paper. Why don't you become an academic and go teach somewhere about your theories? Or be part of sessions, well, not like today, but and talk about the theoretical or the aspirational, But we have quantified, we have verified, we have measured with real results. We're beyond the theory. We're actually in the implementation and execution stage. And in fact, in the next 2 years, I'll take a quick informal quantitative survey right now. How many folks here drive an electric vehicle? A lot less than one would expect. A lot less than one would expect. How many folks would love to drive an electric vehicle? The vast majority of this room. I can only make the assumption, for one reason, a couple reasons. One is the price point of purchasing an electric vehicle. Bicycles are better, Mr. Murray says. Yeah. They make you healthier too. Yeah. Put you in shape. Electric vehicles the price points are out of reach for the vast majority of Californians and Americans. And we don't have the transportation infrastructure, so we have range anxiety as well. But something that's going to transform our economy in California and the way we do things in California is our transportation electrification. Through our cap and trade auction revenues, we invest a percentage of the money to bundle rebates for those at the lowest economic strata. So you may not have the financial wherewithal to purchase a beautiful product such as a Tesla, but perhaps you can buy one at a lower price point, at the lowest price point available. And as a result, too, we'll be building out our transportation electrification infrastructure in California. So charging stations will be ubiquitous. As when you see a gas station, you see Valero, Tesoro, Shell, 76, Chevron, we'll be seeing charging stations all over the city, all over suburban as well as rural areas. From the southern point, with our border, with our friends in Tijuana, in Baja California, all the way to our friends from the north in Oregon. So this will transform the landscape as we know it today. It'll be part of a mainstay of who we are as a state. So the issue of range anxiety will be a thing of the past. And as we bundle our rebates through our auction proceeds from cap and trade, at the same time focusing the rebates on those at the lowest economic strata, we'll make sure that if you live in, for those who are Californians who know California, it's not enough that if you live in Palo Alto or Menlo Park or in Marin or Pacific Palisades or La Jolla or Laguna Beach, or let's say for my good friend Undersecretary Lacey from Mexico City, if you live in Lomas Chapultepec or Polanco, the highest, swankiest neighborhoods in Mexico City, that just because you have the financial wherewithal, you can have access to the latest and greatest and cleanest technologies. That's what early adopters do. They adopt early, irrespective of what the price point is. But you become boutique-ish. Because if we're going to meet our macro global targets with regards to carbon reduction, the median has to have access to the latest and greatest, cleanest technologies. That's why you have to democratize your climate change benefits. If you don't do so with intentionality and with purpose, the free market forces do not even out the inequities that exist. You have to do so through policy. Short of that, only the wealthiest and the richest will have the cleanest and greatest technologies. And therefore, the opposition to all of our policies only point out this is for the elite, the coastal elite, those who have the highest educational attainment, who make a very conscientious decision as a consumer to decide which product do I want to purchase and why. I'm conscientious about the environment. I want to save the planet. Or I've done the math, and it says I can go further, with less. I want to make that decision. But that's why it's critical that we democratize our climate change benefits. And even if you drive an internal combustion car, to put this in context, if you live, say, for example, in a red state in the United States, and let's say you don't believe in climate change, you're a climate change denier altogether. If you drive a brand new Ford F-150 pickup truck with an eco booster, you get 28 mpg highway, 28 miles per gallon highway. 10 years ago, you got 13. Or I should say, no, you got about 18, a little less than 18, 17, 18 mpg. You go farther on the same tank of gasoline because of our efficiency standards here in California, which then President Barack Obama actually nationalized in 2011. So the car manufacturer says we don't want to make two specs, one for California and one for the rest of the nation, because the largest consumer of cars in the country is the state of California. So you use leverage and the power that you have to effectuate public policy that has positive benefits and consequences and it doesn't make a difference if you're Latino, African American, white, Asian American, racially mixed, if you are a progressive Democrat, a moderate Democrat, a left wing, I should say a country club Republican, or a right wing, Trump supporter. Everyone actually benefits from these policies, whether they're conscientious about it or not. But of course, let me say finally that it's simply not enough to play defense. We also have to build on our progress. An essential component of that is fixing our cap and trade program. The program was recently upheld by the State Appeals Court in California, but regardless of the outcome of the ongoing litigation, we will ultimately need to reauthorize the program, and I believe that we should use that process to make improvements. The bottom line is that there will be no certainty in the market until we extend the program with a supermajority vote to insulate from Proposition 26 challenges. It's also critical to ensure that the program is delivering emissions reductions that are verifiable, that are quantifiable, that you can actually measure in disadvantaged communities, and that it sends the right market signals that are sufficient to reach our 2030 emissions targets. I want to make a few brief observations before I conclude. While it's certainly not helpful to have a hostile Congress and administration. It won't be enough. It won't be enough to halt the global momentum of clean energy. I'm still very optimistic. I'm very optimistic about the future for a few key reasons. The first is, we have already discussed, is the power of state and local leadership. The second is the growing international momentum. Even some of the largest global polluters like China and India. China sees the writing on the wall. They're investing massive amounts of capital to try to take the lead as the world's largest super clean power energy nation. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, in the incredible technological breakthroughs of recent years and their offsets on global markets, over 60% of all new energy generation in the U.S. in 2016 was from wind as well as solar. And a growing list of Fortune 500 companies like Google, Facebook, Nestle, as well as Walmart have all set their goals to use 100% clean power. There are now 10 times as many people employed by clean energy in California alone than there are in the coal industry in the entire nation. I want to repeat that one more time. There are now 10 times as many people employed in the clean energy in California alone than there are in the coal industry in the entire nation. And a growing number of politically conservative states like Iowa, Texas, as well as Oklahoma now generate at least 20% of their power from both wind as well as solar, but primarily from wind. As clean energy costs continue to decline, demand will increase, employment will grow, and the political dynamic will shift. In the meantime, we will continue to use every legal and political tool at our disposal to accelerate the progress. And by doing so, we will continue California's trailblazing tradition. I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do every single day, whether you're an NGO, a nonprofit, whether you're entrepreneurs, government ministers from other nations who we enjoy working with and we have much respect for. All of you inspire us here in California, and you motivate us to do the right thing. These are very, very exciting times. And I see the cup is half full, not half empty. Now, there's no doubt about it, we have a very hostile national government towards our policies, but it is what it is. We can throw the towel and give up and get into a get into a fetal position and hope this will be over sometime soon. Or we can stand up straight, believe in our values, believe in what we're doing, know that's good for our economy, know it's absolutely the right thing for the planet because we have no other choice. We are the final backstop. We are the final backstop because our margin of error now is limited now to non-existent. That's why we are the leaders, all of us collectively. All of us here are the leaders here. We have no other choice. We have to move forward. Because I don't see this in a partisan manner, Republican versus Democrat or vice versa. But I see this as the health of our children and generations to come. I see this as our economy and jobs. I see this for the safety for our planet, but more so for the ecosystem that we know today, which is humanity. Because at the end of the day, if we do nothing, the Earth is going to be perfectly fine, folks. Earth is going to be fine. It's been through a lot of stuff before. The Ice Age, and I can go on and on and on. The Earth is going to be perfectly fine. It's us, as humanity, as we know ourselves today. That's what's in peril. And I'm fully confident that continually working together, that we will overcome all of these challenges and become a better state and a better nation and a better world. So with that, God bless each and every one of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.